How are you?
Yeah, I'm good. I'm good, Bernard. How are you?
Good, good. Great. Excited.
Thank you. Firstly, thank you for accepting my invitation and accepting to be on my show.
Yeah, sure. Pleasure.
I've gone through your profile. I can see your AWS community builder, and also you have your own blog. I can see you have done a lot of work. So I thought to tell about your work to my audience.
Okay. So, yeah, my name is Benoît Bouré. I am a serverless developer currently at Serverless Guru. And what we try to do is that we try to help our customers to build and scale their solutions and their business using AWS technology, essentially with serverless. And on the side of that, I'm also, as you said, a AWS Community Builder. So the AWS Community Builder is a program by AWS that kind of recognizes the work from the community that people do, like writing blog posts, hosting shows like you do, uh, doing webinars and talks and everything around AWS in general. So in my case, I am in the serverless cohort, which is a special cohort for serverless. And yeah, as you said, yeah, I do have my blog. I do like to post my knowledge and share my experience with people around all the work that I do with AWS and serverless.
You're from?
Well, I am from Belgium originally. I've lived a long time in Barcelona, Spain, but right now I am in Paris, in France. So I am moving a bit around, uh, but originally from Belgium.
So can you tell more about your work and your where you have started and where you are up to till now?
Okay, so well, if I go way back, back when I started in tech, like I think I got my first computer. I was maybe around 12 years old or something. So I already quickly started to get very interested in how these machines work and getting to know how to build applications and work with them. And when I got my very first internet connection, I also got interested very quickly into how to build websites. And I started, I think, at a very young age with building PHP and HTML web pages and stuff like that. So I really got interested into this early, and that's the path I chose for my career. So I very quickly learned a lot about building web applications. And over time, yes, when I started to work, I kind of deviated from that. So I got into the business of ETL and working with banks and stuff like that to build load transform and extract, or extract, transform and load data for applications, stuff like that. But around 10 years ago, in 2014 about, I started to work as a freelancer. And I started to work for companies building websites, first with PHP again and HTML and stuff like that. And maybe a year later, in 2015, I got my first contractor job at a tech company based in Barcelona, in Spain. And that's how I got introduced to AWS. So before that, I had never heard about AWS. But that company used it for hosting their application. So it was an application based in the business of tourism. So Airbnb and like Booking.com and stuff like that, a bit similar to that, and working with those partners. And well, at the time, we used EC2 and RDS to host the database and the application. And yeah, that's how I got to know AWS. Maybe a few years later, we kind of started like a side project on that business, on that company that it used Lambda and SNS and SQS at the time. So that was my very, very first hands-on project and getting to know serverless technology. So at the time, I did not really know it was called serverless. It was not really a boom, like a very boom word. But we kind of used it a bit. It was a bit clumsy, to be honest, at the time, because we did not use any infrastructure as code. We were deploying our Lambda using simple scripts like zipping the code and uploading it to AWS. But it was like a very first experience with it. So a little bit later, maybe around 2017, 2018, I wanted to start a personal project, like a side project of mine. And of course, like everyone, it had to be built fast and it had to be cheap. So that's really when I started to be more and more interested into serverless and doing my research. I learned about that kind of quote unquote new technology called serverless. And at about the same time, I was getting interested as well into GraphQL. So GraphQL was kind of new at the time. Well, it had a couple of years already to be public, but it was kind of new. And it was that like new shiny way of building APIs. Like it had so many promises to fix those issues that we sort of had with REST APIs. And okay, so based on this, combining both, that's how I got introduced to AWS AppSync. And AWS AppSync is the GraphQL technology, the GraphQL solution offering by AWS, which is fully serverless. It's fully managed, it's fully scalable, and if it doesn't run, you don't pay for idle, you don't pay for anything. And that was my very first big introduction to serverless. And at the time, I was trying to get to know a popular serverless framework at the time, which is called the Serverless framework. And it had this this plugin to deploy GraphQL APIs using AWS AppSync. So it was very, very new at the time. So I got involved a bit into it. I started to contribute in the open source project, which is and I got more and more and more involved into it. And that's kind of how I get to become like this, very knowledgeable about GraphQL and AppSync in this industry. Of course, over time, I also started to learn about DynamoDB, about a bit more about Lambda, because of course, my application needed all of these things. It needed a database, it needed Lambda to run compute code and things like that. And yeah, slowly that's how I started to get more and more knowledge about serverless. And yeah, around maybe 3 years ago, 2021 already now, is when I saw a job offering by the company I'm working at right now, Serverless Guru, offering a job around serverless and specifically AWS AppSync. So okay, I thought that was my opportunity since I was bringing kind of good experience and good knowledge about it in the past few years, even though it was only for a side project at the time. So yeah, I applied and eventually I got to get into this, get into the team, and that's where I am now. So at the time we are still helping our customers to build more and more with serverless, and including with AWS AppSync, but also with other technologies. So yeah, I think that summarizes pretty quickly my background in the last, 20 years now or something more.
So, what kind of projects that you are working and you worked on? I mean, what kind of industries those projects belongs to, and how challenging it is for you, and
Yeah,
how your knowledge is helping and contributing to make things done.
right. So yeah, in my kind of short career now, I've had the chance to work in a very wide variety of different industries. So as I mentioned earlier, I studied kind of in the bank industry, which was very interesting because I got to learn actually things about banks that I did not realize when I used banks in my daily basis, of course, but as a customer, I did not realize how much of a background it has, like what works in the background to make a bank work properly as it should. So I got to learn a few things like about how the business works and how banks work and how they interact with each other as well. So that's one thing. Then I moved into a slightly different but a bit similar industry. It was about an insurance company. It was an insurance company, so it was a bit similar as well. I also worked, as I said, in the in the tech tourism industry, and that was very interesting as well. Getting to know how like businesses like Airbnb and Booking.com work and how they also interact with each other and with their customers, and what happens like also in the background when you book something. Like you book a hotel or an apartment somewhere when you go on holiday. So that was very interesting as well. But yeah, in terms of industries, I've worked as well in airline companies, in I don't know, lottery industry as well, many things, social media as well. So yeah, very wide. So I feel very lucky about that because it allows me to learn different things, and in a different variety of things and technologies as well, because each industry has its own needs, and every technology does not solve every single need. So you get to learn new stuff and every day, which is very interesting. Yeah.
So, as an AWS community builder, what services that you have explored and what you have done in order to in order to become AWS community builder? What was your
Yeah.
contribution?
So usually the way it works with AWS Community Builder is it's a program where you usually essentially you can apply. So every year, I think it's around now in January, they allow people to apply and say, okay, I would like to become a AWS Community Builder. And essentially what they ask you is to provide some kind of contribution that you have made to the community. It can be any kind of contribution. So it can be talks, it can be blog posts, it can be participating in podcasts like this one, sharing knowledge and sharing information, what you learn every day in your day-to-day job, and sharing with the community and to help the community grow and help also other people that are maybe new to the technology, new to AWS, to learn and get involved into getting started. So yeah, that's pretty much how it works. And then every year you get to renew. So if you want to, you can renew. And yeah, you just have essentially to show them what what you have contributed with the community in the past year. And they evaluate that. And if they consider that you deserve to be in that group, in that program, they would grant you with that. So it does also give you a few benefits, things like you get free AWS credits, like to help you like kind of play with the services to learn more and share more content. You also get free like education benefits and things like that. So it's very interesting, and I encourage everyone to try to get into this program if they want to. because you also can learn a lot. You do get access actually to a Slack, private Slack workspace where you can contribute and talk to other builders like you, and it allows you to also learn more from them and learn together, as you can ask other people questions. Like if you are new to something, like let's say you are new to serverless and you are from the containers cohort, you can ask your fellow builders a bit help to get started.
So you are into development and also you are into server management and also you are a blogger. You write things and
Right. So yeah,
you are
I do
into
a bit of
development and
everything.
also yeah, and I mean all side of the software.
Yeah, kind of all side. Actually, I'm more into an architect role. So in the past, I did a bit of architecture role, also development. But right now, my role is more as an architect. So I do try to talk to the business and to the product owners, and my goal is to understand what they need and what are the problems, the business problems that they are trying to solve. And my goal is to translate that into something that we can build using technology on AWS, essentially with serverless, and write some documentation about it and help then the developers, pass it on to the developers to get this developed. Yeah, but in the past I did also do development myself, and I still love a lot to get my hands on. If I can, whenever I can, I like to build also what I design in the end.
And can you tell how the serverless thing works?
Okay, so essentially serverless, as its name kind of gives you a clue about, is a technology that allows you to build systems and products in the cloud without having you to worry about servers and managing and patching them. So like traditionally in the past, when you needed a software, say a business like Airbnb, what you would need is, okay, you would need to deploy servers and maintain them, and you would have to patch them whenever there was a security issue or something like that, and then you would deploy your application to those servers. The promise of serverless is kind of to allow you to forget about these things because they abstract it out for you and they maintain it for you, meaning that you can solely focus on the business, focus on building your application, deploy it into the cloud, and then it will run whenever it needs to run. But you don't need actually to maintain any server, any infrastructure other than what you actually built. So there are different benefits of that. Of course, the biggest one is that you don't need to worry about if there's a security issue or something, you don't need to patch it or anything because AWS will take care of that for you. And another benefit of serverless usually is that it kind of scales as you need it, meaning that if you have suddenly a spike in your traffic because you run a marketing campaign or something and you have a lot of people coming to your business, your website, well, your application will grow almost instantly, and you will not have to worry to deploy more servers and deploy more infrastructure to be able to receive this high traffic. And on the other hand, as well, it also scales down, meaning that if suddenly that spike in traffic goes down, you don't have to worry about scaling down your servers, scaling down your infrastructure, up to the point where even if it scales down to zero in some cases or in most cases, it means that you will also pay almost nothing or very, very little. Like if it doesn't run, if your application doesn't run, in some cases you will not pay anything. So it's the promise of not paying for idle, which is a great benefit. I was mentioning earlier my side project I was trying to run, and that was actually a big argument to use serverless technology because, as I said, one of the requirements was it had to be cheap. So if it didn't run, it shouldn't cost me any money. And that was kind of what introduced me and what brought me to serverless and make it so attractive to me, because it had this promise of not costing anything if it was very low traffic. And one more thing actually is that with most serverless products from AWS, they do benefit from a very generous free tier, like DynamoDB and Lambda functions. In Lambda, you can run, I think, up to 1 million Lambda functions every single month without you to have to pay anything. And DynamoDB allows you to get, I think it's 25 gigabyte of data a month, and it can run for free and forever, up to the point where in most cases, or in some cases, you won't have to pay anything until you really get to high traffic, up to get to production and get a very large amount of traffic, at which point you should hope that your business starts to be profitable, and paying would not be a problem for you then.
So, how many Amazon Web Services have you explored and worked on?
Yeah, there are a lot actually, but the ones I work the most with in my day-to-day basis could be maybe like 10. So of course, DynamoDB, Lambda functions, EventBridge, SQS, S3. That would probably be the top 5, along with AWS AppSync, of course, API Gateway. So there are so many of them, and I explored maybe a lot already, but the ones I work with the most maybe are just, a dozen or 10, which I already know the most and work with. Otherwise, I can always rely on my fellow builder and the documentation to get things done.
So how will be the business requirements? Like you have worked as a freelancer, also now working for an organization, working with business owners and trying to convert their business idea and trying to match the technology, products and services to match their business requirements. So how is that? Is that a challenging thing, or you enjoy it because you have been in technology for a long time?
Yeah, that's actually something I enjoy, because being able to solve real life problems, real business problems using technology is something I really, really like. It's not always necessarily easy, because understanding the requirements from a business requires a lot of knowledge as well. So I think at the very beginning, there's always like a learning curve that is quite hard, because if it's a business that you've never worked with, you first need to understand the business. Like if you've never worked in a bank, understanding what a bank needs can be challenging. So it can take a few months, a few weeks at least to really understand how things works, and getting to know exactly what are the needs. Because sometimes the business owner, they will talk to you in their language, and you don't necessarily understand them. So it requires a lot of learning, a lot of asking to really understand what is required. So that's actually a big part of the job. And once you understand that, based on your experience with building software, building architecture, it becomes very, very easy to actually solve a problem. You just need to know your services. You know what every service is for, and understanding which solution is the best one for the problem that is required. It can be also challenging, but experience allows you to do that quite easily.
You have been in technology for a long time, and you might have worked with a lot of tools and technologies. So, in this evolution of technology, in this, the constant change that is happening in the technology and in the world between human, and technology. So, where we are today and how Amazon Web Services are helping, businesses to solve their problems.
Yeah. So indeed, it has evolved a lot. Like when I already started my career and maybe at a younger age when I started to learn how to code, there was nothing like the cloud did not exist. Serverless did certainly not exist. So I started very at the very bottom, like learning how to build software and then deploy your code. At the time, I was uploading with PHP. It was very, very basic. Then over time, I started to learn how to use when the cloud appeared, I started to learn how to use infrastructure as code that allows you to automate and make deployment much easier and reproducible, which was a huge step forward compared to deploying things by hand. Of course, when the cloud came, I did not jump into the cloud at the very beginning. It took me a few years to get really involved into it. Again, when I started to work at that company in 2015 or something, I think the cloud had already quite a few years already in activity. But when I started to learn that, to me it was a revolution. So learning how to build things in the cloud without like having to manage too many things was a huge benefit for me. So I quickly saw that it was a huge help for me and what it can bring as a developer, to you as a developer, as a company, as a business. It's very big. And the second step forward for me was discovering serverless, which was again a huge leap forward to building things and learning how to build things very, very quickly.
So, how is working? What scale businesses that you work for as a developer or as an architect can be freelancing or working for an organization? So, how is uh, where we are when it comes to Amazon Web Services?
I'm not sure I understood the question, but I'm trying to guess it. So I've worked for different companies, very small companies, medium companies, very large companies as well. And every kind of company is very different. So if you work for a very small startup, things are usually working much faster because startups need to grow really, really fast. The teams are also very small. Like I work for startups where I would do pretty much everything. I would do product managing, architecture, development, talking to the business, understanding everything. Like even though I would work with the team, our very small team of maybe 3-4 people would pretty much do everything. So I've worked in medium companies as well, where things were a bit more under control of a management team and everything, where they would give you a bit more directives, like how to do things, and things were a bit more controlled and under the supervision of different persons. But I've also worked for very, very large companies. And working for a very large company is very even more controlled, yeah. So they have a team or a person for every single step. So you have business owners, you have project managers, you have architects, you have developers, then you have QA teams. Where working for a startup, we would do QA as well. So we would do everything. So yeah, it's very different. It's different dynamic. But of course, every company has its own needs, and very large companies have also different responsibilities, and they have much more to lose as well. So they have to put everything under control and very strict a very strict organization.
So these Amazon Web Services resources, using it for small company and medium company and large scale company is a different thing. So management and using it effectively for the development and also matching it with the business requirement. So what you learned from it and how was that working, for different scales? How different it is?
Yeah, well, it's very different as I just explained, but in the end, it's kind of the same job. It's like small companies or big companies, they mostly, at least in the experience I have, they use the same technology. The way they use it depends on what the business is, of course, but they might also depend on the size of the company. Like the scale is of course is different, but as I said, serverless scales on its own. So in the end, what you build for a very small company can be exactly the same as you build for a very large company. But the way you achieve it and the way the path to it can be different and can be much faster in a very small company.
So managing, small and large, resources, is that same as a technologist?
Well, in serverless, you don't really care about the scale. Like, as I said, it auto scales. So the management of the resources is pretty much the same. You will have different maybe ways to I don't know, to handle observability, for example, or to you would have different like tolerance on what goes to production or not, whether it's tested or not, or things like that. But really, the scale does not really. Well, of course, if you have a large scale, very large scale, you will have to put some more thinking into some things. Like, for example, if you are using DynamoDB, if you are expecting very large scale, you will have to think about your access patterns very carefully, because there are some limits that you can hit at very large scale, where if you are for a very small company where the scale is very small, you might not need to think too much about it, because you will never hit those limits that they might have. Most limits actually, in most cases, they are very adjustable as well. So if suddenly your company needs very large, a lot of Lambda invocations, you can raise some limits by just opening a ticket at AWS. But some limits are not. There are some hard limits based on the technology itself, because of how it's built. So in those cases, you will need to do some more work to go around those limits. But essentially, 99% of things are pretty much the same.
What do you like most in your job or in your role?
Oh,
What you want to do, that you like to do and you enjoy to do?
yeah, what I enjoy the most is really solving real problems for companies and turn that into architecture and into code. I like the way that, especially in AWS, like the way that you can use all sorts of kind of Lego blocks and put them together to solve the problem that you're trying to solve. To me, it's like almost like going back to play as a kid. Like, you put things together and you build something from it. That's what I enjoy the most.
So, understanding the architecture of the business, how is that? And how much time you take to understand?
Yeah, well, it can take a lot of time, as I think I mentioned earlier. Like really understanding the business requires you to understand the domain and what the business wants and what it needs to achieve. And sometimes it does require some more like iteration. Like sometimes you think you understand something, but in the end, there's more thing that you did not see or you did not know that will change everything, like, if you don't consider some aspects of the business or things that you don't know can happen, edge cases and stuff like that, it can change everything in terms of development, but also architecture. So that does require some work, and sometimes you need to get into meetings and more meetings to really get to understand what they want to achieve. But it's challenging, but it's also very, very interesting.
So, if you don't know exactly what is going to happen and how you prepare yourself to something that is going to happen unexpectedly.
Well, can you really prepare for the unexpected? I don't know, maybe. You do need to leave some room for error, of course. As you go over the solution, you always need to think in terms of what can go right, but also what can go wrong. It does not necessarily, it's not necessarily easy, but as you build your solution, you always need to think about what are all the possibilities and what can happen, what can not happen. But most of the time, you will need to maybe guess or try to pull that from the business and understand what are all the scenarios, all the possible scenarios that the solution can accept. So it does require some time sometimes, and sometimes you go to production and then you realize that there's something that you did not consider, but of course then that can happen. And at that point, you just need to understand and go with business and say, okay, what happened? What went wrong and why did it go wrong? And how can we avoid this in the future? But also, how can we solve it? Like, what is the solution to that?
You are from Spain and now you're in France. Have you worked with other countries, businesses?
Yeah, I am from Belgium. I did live in Spain for a while. I've worked with people all around the world, not only businesses, but my team, like my teammates. I've worked with companies in Belgium, in Spain, in the United States, in Denmark, and in so many countries. And at some point, I worked for a company in the US, but myself, I was in Spain, and my teammates were in Africa, in India, in New Zealand, and in so many places. That does require a bit more organization as well. So time zone is sometimes a big challenge. Like I mentioned that company I worked for in the US, my teammates were in Africa and in New Zealand, and sometimes they were like up to 12 hours time difference between us or more. And that requires some organization in terms of meetings, because sometimes it's very early in the morning for the client, but for some of our teammates, it's very late at night. So it's not always easy, because you need to be a bit more flexible in terms of schedules. Like it does happen sometimes right now for me that I still have meetings at 9 or 10 p.m. and it does require some organization to balance that with your personal life as well, which is not always easy. But yeah, it's part of the job. I love the fact that I am able to work with people from all around the world and learn from different people and cultures. But of course, yeah, time zone is often the the bad side of things.
The business market in different geological locations will be different, and you have worked for different areas on the planet. So, uh, as an architect, as a developer, working for a business which is in that place, and next working for a business which belongs to other part of the world. So, what difference that you found, and how different it is?
Well, I would say in at least in the industry of tech, I did not really see a lot of differences in terms of business. In terms of how to interact with people, that's another story. I mean, we all have our cultures and our language and stuff like that. So most of the time, of course, we do speak in English, but it's very interesting to learn how other people work, and sometimes we can find some culture, not culture shock, but I would say, but culture difference where it's very interesting to learn from, not only in work, but also in our day-to-day interactions. Like, of course, like any teammates, like we do talk, we do sometimes have informal meetings to learn from each other. Like in our company right now, we do have like a cooking recipe channel where people share what they cook and stuff like that. And sometimes it's very interesting to know and to see what people will do, and the recipes and the things they can eat and stuff like that. And it's very interesting. And sometimes, of course, we try to meet like in real life. Like sometimes we do meet in conferences and things like reInvent and things like that. So we also get to bind together and learn from those different cultures.
So, except, the communication that you have mentioned, if you are a global communicator working for different countries, and companies belongs to different countries. So, you said that, the technology is same and the business is same. So apart from this, have you found something, the business market, or something, the Spain market is different from US market, or US market is different from Indian market. So like that, when you're working as developer, or working on a project.
Yeah. So in my career, I've worked, I think mostly I've worked for companies based in the US. When I worked in Spain, actually the company, it was based in Spain, kind of, we had like an office in Spain, but like the headquarter was in the US as well. So it was more of a US mindset company as well, which was very interesting as well. I do have a few side projects or side hustles with clients in other parts of the world. So yeah, it is different, but I wouldn't say like it's super different. So I don't really know what to tell you about this more than that.
Sure. And to conclude, you are a developer and you are an architect, and also
Yes.
you worked as a freelancer, and also you have your own blog, and you are also a AWS community builder.
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah. So I do blog whenever I can. It's not always easy. I do have probably a list of a few blog posts I'd like to write. I don't always have the time or the inspiration, but that's another story. But I try to blog whenever I can. When I think I learned something new, I do that. I also try to be active a bit in the social networks like X or Twitter and LinkedIn and things like that. You can find me on those socials anytime. And that's pretty much it.
And at last, as an expert, as a contributor, as a analyst, as a architect, what is your observation about my work? Have you seen any videos of mine on YouTube?
I did see a couple of those. I think it's very interesting to get to learn about different areas of tech and anything else actually. So I think you're doing a great job. You have interviewed so many people as I see already. So I really encourage you to continue and keep sharing everyone's experience so that we can all learn from each other.
So I have done masters in software engineering, also bachelors in computer science and engineering. Right now I'm working as
Okay,
DevOps engineer for a London company. That's my full-time job. So
oh, that's
apart
great.
from that, I'm interviewing industry leaders and experts and architects and people who are working on different domains from different parts of the world, not just technology people. I'm trying to
Yeah,
explore who are police officers, authors, psychologists, like who belongs to different industries, and also trying to understand business owners' perspectives, like how they build businesses and what are the technologies that actually they search in order to make their business idea to put in the market. So with this kind of an collection of information and global communication, what I'm going to learn and how this project is going to be helpful for me in future,
yeah, that's great. Yeah.
how it is going to be useful, as an observer.
Oh, that's a tough question. Um, I really don't know how to answer that. Can you maybe reformulate a bit the question?
So you have been in technology from long time. You might have communicated with a lot of developers or business owners
Mhm.
or architects or different kinds of technology leaders. You will be working and you'll be communicating and you have seen how the project management is done and how IT industry works. So me communicating with global leaders. I also interviewed AWS Vice President Jeff Barr
Yeah.
from US a couple of times to understand how they are planning, services to reach everywhere on the planet. So how this collection of communication with different experts and industry leaders and also developers and also architects is going to help me in my journey as per your observation based upon
Yeah.
your experience in technology.
Yeah, I think getting to know and understand all the different aspects of companies and not only in tech, but also all the leaders and management and marketing and everything. I think it's super valuable because it will allow you how to understand how a company works in all its aspects. And understanding that is probably helping you to do a better job because at some point you might need, even as a tech person, you might need to have some involvement into marketing because they want to build a system to help the marketers to reach more people or the management to handle better their day-to-day tasks. So in the end, tech is kind of the core of a company because with tech you can pretty much do everything you consider everything you want. So and it can happen in all the aspects of a company. So understanding how a company works and all the different aspects of the company or the leaders or the persons that work there will definitely help you do a better job because it allows you to think also in terms of other aspects, not only the technical aspect that the technical problem you're trying to solve, but it might also have an impact on something else in the company. And if you can see that in advance and you can detect maybe some issues or some things that can happen, it's super useful to know that because it will allow you to do a better job and do it faster.
Means a lot to me, your
Mm.
observation. I'll reserve it in my system whenever I feel less or low. I'll see what you said.
Yeah, great.
So can you share your social media, I mean, online presence to my podcast listeners who will be listening this on audio? They can able to connect you and learn from you.
Yeah, sure. So my X account is Benoît_Bouré. I would show you it on the screen. My LinkedIn, I will also share my LinkedIn and my blog post. And apart from that, I think that's it. There's not much more I can share. You will find me there, and from there you can find anything else that I'm involved in pretty easily, I think.
Can you spell it?
Oh yeah, it's so my X is Benoit_Boure, and my LinkedIn, I think it's linkedin.com/u/BOURE.
And your blog?
My blog is benoitboure.com.
Great. I'll share those links in the description of this video, also on the screen as well, and also on my website as well. People who find this video anywhere in the internet can able to see the work that you're doing and able to learn from it, and can upskill themselves and be useful for their company and also for the society and for the planet.
Yeah, sure.
Can
Amazing.
I put this video on my YouTube channel with your permission?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, sure.
And also, can I put this audio and video clip on my podcast, website, internet, social media, everywhere with your permission?
Yeah, for sure.
Thanks again, Benoit,
Uh,
for your valuable time and giving answers to some of my questions and sharing some of your experiences.
yeah, sure. You're welcome. I was happy to be here and happy to share my experience and what I do.
Thank you, sir. Take care. Bye.
Yeah, thank you. Bye.